Hey there guys, what's going on? Gale here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Genshin Impact video, and today I want to talk about one of the things that I think is the most interesting thing to come out of the Archon quest in Notcry. Of course, you know, we've had a bunch of stuff revealed. Spoiler warning, of course, I should mention, but we have had a bunch of stuff revealed in the Archon quest, from Damslet Columbina herself to, of course, Rerir, one of the 5 sinners of Canrea, being involved in this Archon quest. Everything was super fascinating and exciting, but one thing in this Archon quest that I feel, I wouldn't say it went under the radar, but it definitely had a very minor section that I think is super important, and I think will be something that will come back to, you know, effectively be a major plot point very soon. I think it's gonna happen within this specific Archon quest line that we're following in Notcry. I really do believe so. And to show you guys, we're gonna go through that specific scene that I'm talking about together in this video first and foremost, and then we'll talk about generally my thoughts, my theories regarding this what's going to happen from this scene, of course, and the revelation from this scene. And I want to see what you guys have to say as well, so leave your thoughts in the comment section down below as well. And of course, remember, if you guys want to check out more Genshin content and Honkai Star Rail content, as well as everything else that you might like to see potentially, hit that subscribe button. It would be truly appreciated. Let's watch the scene together first, and then we'll talk about it together, okay? Now, this is the first time I'm seeing it from, of course, the male MC's perspective, so it'll be a little bit different for me as well. Big shoutouts to Streetwise Rhapsody for, of course, uploading this. I would have probably opened my own stream, but I would have been talking over it, so I'm not gonna really do that necessarily. Okay. This is what we saw before, only clear. There we go. There's our spaceship, of course. I would say, yeah, we technically landed safely is a questionable thing, but yes, we did land safely, I suppose. Okay. Streetwise Rhapsody's taking pictures here. That's why he's holding it, but yeah. So time has passed. Okay. Good, good, good. You can see the moss growing over the spaceship. You can see the land forming over it effectively. When did Lumine get out, I wonder? Is that Lumine? Uh-oh. But how can that be? No one left the spaceship from the moment we landed. The door hasn't even been opened yet.
Where is this?
Okay.
Aether, come on, we have to leave this place.
All right. That is the most important thing, of course, in this part, effectively, is no one left the spaceship. How could that be? How is our sibling outside of the spaceship? I think that this is the most interesting to come out of this Archon quest. Don't get me wrong. Of course, I think a lot of the other stuff was super important as well, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing our first attempt at actually taking on a full-on one of the 5 sinners properly. Maybe not properly, considering his current power level and everything compared to his actual full power level, but still. Seeing that, and now, you know, obviously seeing what's happening with Columbina and the Moon Goddess factor and all that sort of stuff, the 3 Moon Goddesses and all, the Eternal Moon, Frost Moon, and Iridescent Moon, all of that is very fascinating. But to me, this is, I think, the most long-term, especially considering our goal from the very beginning, right? The very beginning of the game, the goal has always been to link up with our sibling. Now, of course, that goal has evolved and transformed, you name it, you know, it's changed, right? It's changed, and ever since we've met our sibling, we've gone down a different path so that we can circle back and figure out what our sibling's trying to say. Now, the thing is, right, there's a couple of ways that this can go, right? And I want to go over the first 2 points because I feel like they're the most boring and most predictable points in this scenario, right? Now, number 1, our MC, our protagonist, the traveler himself, has lost their memory, and their memory isn't being shown here, right? that is theory number one, very basic theory. I doubt that's the case because it does seem like this is from an external perspective, not from the MC's perspective necessarily. At least that's what I believe, right? So in that situation, I think we have to eradicate that first theory altogether, right? That's a very simple theory, out of the way. The second theory, and this is once again a bit of a more boring theory, is our memory has been manipulated with or tampered with potentially, or something along those lines. Again, going down the memory route more so than anything else. It is, again, one of those theories that I feel like is a little bit lackluster. Actually, I'll chuck in another theory in there just to add another one that I feel like is a little bit memory related, and I feel like it would be a bit weird if we didn't have that memory. Is that on the way to Teyvat, whatever the situation was, whether it be that they were having to do an emergency landing, or if they were trying to land on Teyvat and then they got shot out of the sky by whoever, a la Honkai Star Amphoreus, where we got knocked out of the sky. If you remember, you remember, of course, or if you played it, you do know what I'm talking about in 3.0. When the Astral Express was trying to land on Amphoreus, we got shot out of the sky, right? Something similar, akin to that, has happened here, clearly, right? Potentially. Do I think that's the case? Probably not. I don't think so. I feel like if it was any of these three things, we would have seen it. It is a very boring thing, but we would have seen it and it would have been very obvious. And when I say we got shot down out of the sky, I assume at that point Lumine or Aether, the sibling, would have evacuated or ejected from the spaceship at that point. And it kind of goes in line a little bit with what Deridet said, of course, right? With the key and all of that sort of stuff, right? In that sort of situation, obviously our MC didn't have access to the key, so they were like, okay, let's go and finally get them and stuff. Something along those lines is what I think potentially would have happened. Maybe, just maybe. I don't think so. I don't think it's any of those three theories. Personally, to me, I think I think it would be very boring, very predictable, very meh overall. To be quite honest, I think it would be a very meh cop out, to be quite honest, when you've set up something like this so well. Now, there's two other theories, right? And I think the first theory is a theory that I think can be more plausible and more likely, to be quite honest. And that is the simple fact that our sibling was summoned from literally the spaceship itself to Khaenri'ah, right? That is theory number one. The better theories, from the better theories, that is theory number one. I think it is not impossible that Khaenri'ah would have summoned our sibling, and unfortunately, as a result of that, they didn't know where we landed. As a result, they were lost, and as a result, they couldn't find us necessarily. And in the meantime, they had to obviously help out with whatever Khaenri'ah was going through in that sort of situation. And then, of course, when Deridet gave Aether the key, they were able to track it down a lot easier using the echolocator of some sorts, or whatever it may have been, potentially being able to easily find us or come back to us super easily, right? Potentially. Now that is theory number one, which I think is, again, a very plausible theory. It would make sense that, you know, our sibling was not in the spaceship. The spaceship's door wasn't open, of course, right? The door hasn't even been open, as he aptly said, of course, in this line, right? So it would make sense if we were just, or the sibling was just poofed out of the spaceship, potentially, right? It would also indicate as to maybe why they maybe lost control, because obviously while landing into Teyvat, potentially the sibling would have just disappeared or vanished potentially, and our traveler would have been like, what the hell's going on? I've lost control of the spaceship. Potentially, you know, they have to dual control it. Boom. Landed. Struggle town, right? Struggle town in that sense. That is theory number one out of the potentially very interesting theories that I think that could go down very interesting routes depending on the execution and how it pans out, right? Now, the second theory, and of course the title of this video, is a very simple one. Our sibling died on landing. Now, there is one thing that would make it a bit questionable, and that is, of course, when we got out. But it was a black screen, remember. It was a black screen, so maybe they didn't... our sibling wasn't complete... Or we weren't completely aware of our, you know, surroundings. But what if the body of the sibling was still there, potentially, right? What if that was the case, right? What if they were still there? And what our sibling is here is effectively a sort of a reincarnation. When they say they summoned the sibling, right? When they say Kanrea summoned the sibling, what if that summoning is from the abyss or from potentially another world, another dimension, another place? You know what I'm saying? A bit of necromancy going on over here, you know, potentially. That's what I'm saying. You know, I think that might be the case, you know. It would lead to a very interesting situation, potentially. I think that would make things way more, a bit more horror-esque, if you want to say, especially when let's say we find the body. That would be very, very interesting to see how they portray it and stuff, right? Now, obviously, I think that it would be a bit more outlandish, but I don't see a reason why that's outlandish necessarily. Because remember, our sibling, while we are considered one, our sibling is not a descender. So they have been able to merge with the ley lines. Now, be it because of the fact that they've been around for much longer and actually active in Teyvat, maybe, but even still, you know, the likes of the Primordial One and so on and so forth, a couple of the other ones, they're all considered descenders, even though they've been in Teyvat for so long, right? Or they have been involved in Teyvat for so long. So it can't be that the case is like, oh, Lumine was here, or Aether, the sibling, was here for so long that they immediately do not classify as a descender. No, they would still be classified as a descender. So there has been a situation in which they have merged, or their being, their powers, their abilities, whatever there may be, their soul has merged with Teyvat's ley lines in some way, shape, or form, however it may have been. And as a result, the world does not consider them to be a descender. So now it begs the question as to what's our sibling truly like. And another thing to remember is that he's attuned with the abyssal. Now it could be that it's because of his involvement with Verdofulnir and obviously creating the Abyss Order after the events of Carrybird and so on and so forth, potentially. But what if he was able to harness the abyssal power for all this time purely because that's how he was summoned? He was summoned from the dead, potentially by Kanrea, and as a result, they had the ability to extract this power from the other side effectively. It's going to be a very interesting situation, to say the least, and I think this is the reason why I personally feel that this specific moment, this scene, in my opinion, to me, I think that this is the most exciting scene, to be quite honest, because there's so many possibilities, potential situations that could come out of this simple
We have to leave this place.
5-minute scene, or less than 5-minute scene technically in its entirety.
Crumbs. Take up.
No.
The secrets within memories are like
Yeah.
crumbs everywhere.
There's something strange going on. I have to get to the bottom of this. Yeah, and of course, we need to still save Notcry before we can access the spaceship. Because remember, we finally realized that the spaceship was near Star Sand Shoal, effectively, right? On the left-hand side of Notcry, you can see it it's pretty obvious. They've left the map as it is. It's not changed, effectively, even though this is, like, nearly 700, 800 years ago now at this point in game. But yeah, I'm very excited. I've got a couple, like I said, this is a theory of mine. I'm kind of just spitballing a little bit. I wanted to make this a video because, one, clickbait, but number two, I actually wanted to discuss this theory potentially and see what you guys think as well. Because I think, honestly, I'm really hoping it's not the first three that I mentioned. I really think it's two things. One, our sibling got summoned out of the spaceship, and number two, our sibling is just dead, potentially. Obviously, Columbina tries to save it a little bit by saying, oh, you know, the secrets and the memories are everywhere. There could be, like, potential figments that are missing. I think it's not impossible that they go down the more basic route, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they go down the more basic route. but I wouldn't mind them being a little bit more unpredictable. But I say unpredictable as if I'm not saying this theory anyways, but I'm hoping that they go down the more unpredictable route and just give us something completely out of the ordinary and just give us something crazy, you know. I really hope so. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the rest of your day, evening, afternoon, wherever you may be. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.